Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, my name is Akshan Sharma, and today we will be diving deep into basics of Power Apps properties. So if you ever opened a Power Apps studio and thought, what in the world all these properties are, don't worry, you are not alone. So stick around, and by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to decode these properties and how behavior properties works, right? And you will be able to know what properties are and use them like a pro. Bit of the background why I am doing this. So when I was starting out in my journey of Canvas application development, I didn't find any structured material which you will be able to consume and know how to use Power Apps and conceptually how Power Apps decode these concepts and work. So that's why I am starting this basic series so that whoever is starting out, whoever is watching my channel, they will be able to go through this basic series and able to understand how Power Apps, Canvas apps actually work and learn it the right way, the way I wish I knew when I was starting out. So let's get started. All right. So we opened our make.powerapps.com. Now, to show you how properties work, we will need to open the studio. Right. So any just a best practice, any solution, any power app, any component which you are creating has to be inside a solution. Just make that as a thumb rule. Whenever you're creating something, it has to be inside a solution. So we'll create a new solution quickly. So Power Apps Basic Series. We'll select the default publisher for now. Right, great. It's that easy. So now we have created our solution. We will create a dummy Power App, and I will take you through all the properties chronologically, just like how a user will interact with the application. So let's just quickly create a Power App. Basic Series Power Apps. All right, perfect. So we opened our Power App Studio. Now, what properties are and how they work. So first of all, we will talk about this one, which is your on app start, formulas, on error, all those different properties, right? So imagine a user is opening a power app which you created, right? Or you want to develop a power app which multiple people will be using. So how properties works? Actually, first of all, what are properties, right? Let's answer this question first. So in Power Apps, properties are the building blocks that define how controls like button, text inputs, galleries, everything look and behave. It is very important to understand what properties are, right? So think of them as the DNA of your apps, right? Now, for example, properties controls things like size, color, visibility, actions performed by the user, what to trigger as an output of that action, right? Pretty cool. So we will be talking about chronologically, right? So first, what happens when user opens the application? That's the first property. What you need to do to actually create the behavior of your power app when a user actually opens the power app, right? So imagine that you want to show a welcome message, right? That it's dynamic, or you want to set a variable which you will be using down the line. We will talk about all these things down the line, where what are variables, what are collections, what are galleries, what are forms, submit, patch, all these different things. But first things first, we need to understand what is the very first property which gets triggered when someone opens a power app, and as a result what all things you need to do. So Let's come back to it. So this is the app property which I was talking about. So if you quickly select this, so by selecting this, this is the main thing which you need to look for. So for example, so this is what we called the properties drop down, right? So this drop down will help you evaluate what all properties are there for that component. So for example, right now we are in the app component, right? So this is the app. So what all properties are there, that they will be displayed here. And simultaneously what you can do is you can see this tab here as well, which is properties, right? So what you can see, the display, you will have very high level properties, and then this the advanced one, which is again very cool. You will be able to see all the properties and everything from the advanced tab as well. So let's quickly check the advanced tab. So you can see action properties, right? What are action properties for this app? So we have on error, on message, on start, and then we have data properties, design properties, right? So very high level, if I tell you what are properties and how Power Apps categorizes them. So core properties, whenever we talk about any component, right? I'm talking about any component. It can be your button, it can be your gallery, it can be your form, it can be a text label, anything, right? So there are core three categorization of properties basically, right? Input, output, and behavior. Behavior is very important, right? We are starting with behavior only. So input, output, and behavior. So these three are the main categorization of properties. So whenever we say action, action is kind of your behavior property, right? So we have on error, on message, on start. So let's quickly see the drop down. So you can see for this app here, we have all these properties, right? So you can see we have on start, very useful, very powerful property, behavior property, very powerful behavior property, right? And as the name suggests, behavior property is nothing but some action performed by the user, and as a result of that action you want to trigger certain statements of code, right? So what does that mean? That means if I am opening an application, right, that means I am telling Power App that okay, now user opened the application, so this is my app. And on start means I opened the application, right? So user performed opening the application, that's your trigger, right? That's your trigger means that is the prerequisite criteria which the user satisfied. Now which property relates to that? That is on start property of the application, this app itself. And as a result, what you need to do, so whatever you want to do as a result of this trigger, which is opening the Power App, you can do it here, right? We will talk about variables in the upcoming videos, but for now, just to basically show you how on start property works, because we are in a basic series, right? We will be talking about very granular level stuff, and how conceptually Power Apps treat these properties and these statements of code and everything, right? So we have app on start. So what I need to do when a user satisfies my trigger condition, that is opening the Power App. So gvar, that's my naming convention for variables, which I will anyway cover down the line. So gvar user opened Power App, right? So that I need to set as true. So this is very basic, right? Now this, what I need to do is basically set this variable on start of my application or on opening of my Power App. Now quickly, if I want to see this variable output, we will talk about these things which I'm doing right now down the line. I'm just showing you how property works and what you can execute and how to see the value of that particular action. So what I want to see is this, which is false right now, right? So now I am not actually publishing this app and opening it as a user, but there is a way to test or to mimic the same trigger while you are in the um, Canvas app studio, Power Apps Canvas app studio, right? So how to mimic the trigger, which is basically user opening the Canvas app, right? So app, right? Run on start. The moment I click it, that means I mimicked the trigger, which is user opening the Canvas app, right? So app, you can see the moment I clicked run on start, it is true now, right? So that's what it means to basically see the app on start property. Very important, very crucial property. Whenever you are developing Canvas applications, your on start property is the one thing which you will always use for your global variables which you want to change down the line. Very important statement, which you want to change down the line in your application, right? If the variable satisfies this statement, that is, you want to change their value, right? So that is when you use on start property. But let's say there is another scenario where your variables will not change down the line. Now whoever is aware about variables, great. But if you're not aware about variables, variables are nothing but they are like logical entities which can store some value, right, in them. So that's variables for you. You can store a text, you can store a table, you can store a record, you can store a color value, you can store anything basically. So if you want to store something in intermediately, right, so you have your opening the Canvas app and ultimate use of that value, and if you want to store that action in something, that is your variable. So what I used here, that is called a global variable. Now what, back to the point, if you want to update your variables, that's when you use this on start property. Now, if you don't want to use or if you don't want to update your values of your variables, then you will use the formulas property. Very new. So these are called named formulas. I think they got released, I think 7-8 months back as general availability, right? So when I say you don't want to update your variable value, now what does that mean? That means you just want to store who's the current user of the application, right? So you just store current user, right? And that is all you need to do. So current user equals to user. That's all you want, right? And you will well, you can't change who is the current user whenever a user is using the application, right? So that means you don't want to modify the variable value. These are called named formula variables. That's why I'm using nf as prefix. So let's quickly see the value of this as well. So if I quickly do this, nf current user dot, if I want to see full name. So you can see Akshan Sharma coming up very nicely. So now if you are using named formulas, right? So this is your named formula, and if you are using your named formulas, you will not be able to update its value. Now what does that mean? I'll quickly show you. So if we go to screen 1, if we add a button and set my variable again, which is gvar user open power app, and if I want to set this as false, I can do that. So what I did, I just override the value of my this variable as false on select of this button. Now you see, whenever you have on select, or on, whenever a name of a property is something like on start, on select, on error, that means it's a behavior property, right? User is performing something using the UI, and as a result you are triggering something. So that's a behavior property for you. So on select, what I want to do is set this variable as false. So if I quickly do run on start, I mimic the trigger, right? Then my variable is true now. Again, Akshan Sharma, my current user full name is as it is. So if I click this, I basically overridden the value of my variable to false. That I can do using global variables. But if it is current user, I can't basically say that now my named formula variable, which is nf current user value is equals to, let's say, something. I can't do that. So you can see, uh, okay, let's just what it. So we basically can't modify the value of a named formula, right? So this is what means to this is what it means to use a global variable and a named formula on start of the application and on formulas property of the app on start. Sorry, app only, not on start. Similarly, we have on error message. So if any error occurs whenever you have any function in your Power App, whenever you have any action in your Power App, so if anything happens while you are using the Power App, this is where your on error property will be triggered. So you can log the error in your Azure Analytics and all the advanced stuff. But we will cover that down the line if you want me to. But today's agenda was to understand OnStart and formula properties, what type of properties they are, how to use them, and how Power Apps actually decode your OnStart and formula properties when the action is performed by the user. Right. So that is your OnStart property, and we talked about the formulas as well. So why you can't change a property on the formula, and similarly we have OnSelect property as well, and we have all the other color properties, height, and everything, which we will talk about in our input and output type of properties. Today we discussed behavior type of properties and how Power Apps execute them, right? So similarly, we have text property, we have fill property, we have visible property. On select, we just talked about on the button, right? So that those are all different types of properties, but we will talk about the two categorizations which are left under properties, which is input and output, and we will touch upon color, height, width, and all those different things, right? So that is it for today. Now you know the basics of Power Apps properties, especially the behavior properties, and how to decode them when starting out. So properties might seem overwhelming at first, right? I know it. I experienced it firsthand. But with a little practice, you will be customizing your apps like a pro in no time. Trust me, if you follow the way I'm decoding how everything works in Canvas Tab Studios, you will be able to understand the concepts conceptually and how Power Apps actually execute them, right? So if you found if you found this video useful, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell icon so you don't miss my future tutorials. So thank you very much, and hope you will start playing around with at least behavior type of properties. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.